Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now, oddly enough, Cristiano Ronaldo has been talking about Andy Ruiz Jr. when he was talking about his diet and staying in shape during his football career. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo is now 35 years old, yet still at the peak of his powers and playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world, Juventus, and he's in shape, he's scoring just as many goals as usual, and it doesn't seem any different to what he was 5 years ago. So, he's managed to maintain and eke out his peak in the game of football. Now, he was speaking about Andy Ruiz and his body shape, how that compares to, say, his body shape, which is completely different. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo looks aesthetically good, but also he performs on the pitch. Andy Ruiz is a little bit different. He doesn't necessarily look aesthetically brilliant, but he does perform in the ring most of the time. There are certain instances where maybe he didn't take the preparation as serious as he should, but that's a different problem. Or maybe it isn't, because in that segment Cristiano Ronaldo also explained it's not necessarily about your body. He said he doesn't really believe that that is the problem. It's all up here, pointing to his head. So this is what he had to say about Andy Ruiz and his body shape. The fight, Ruiz against Joshua. Joshua is top, but the other one is good. I talked to my friends and they said, his body. I said, listen, the body doesn't matter, it's preparation. So clearly there is this underlying thing that it's not just about how you look, it's about how you perform. And that's exactly it. It doesn't matter how you look. I mean, look at Andy Ruiz. He was world champion, yet he didn't look aesthetically in shape like Anthony Joshua. And often that can sometimes play into their hands because maybe you would underestimate someone like that. Oh, he doesn't live the life. He's overweight. He doesn't necessarily look like an athlete. So take him lightly. He's not going to be able to do anything to a prime aesthetically pleasing athlete like, say, Anthony Joshua, so therefore he can be underestimated. He's like a sleeper in some ways. You sleep on him because you think that there's nothing he can do, but in all realness he actually can, because I think that it wasn't just because Andy Ruiz is a brilliant fighter, which he is. He's a very good fighter. I wouldn't say he's elite. I'd say he's definitely world level. He's good enough to be elite, but that's another conversation for another day. But if you think about the fact that Ruiz went in there, he's a good fighter, likes to fight on the inside, fast hands, good power, and very unassuming. So AJ's going in there with that kind of fighter, a fighter who is a lot better than he looks, even a lot better than he looks when he's in there with, say, Joe Parker. That was the best Andy Ruiz, the one that went in there with Joshua the first time around. That was peak Ruiz, the best performance he's given during his career. So considering that, he's that good a fighter, but another problem that Anthony Joshua has in this fight is Andy Ruiz has a style that can trouble him. So that does work in Ruiz's favour as long as AJ fights the way Ruiz wants him to. And granted, early on in the fight, Joshua doesn't do that. He sticks behind his jab, he sticks to his boxing, sticking to the things that he needed to win. But then he hurts Ruiz. Then all of a sudden, okay, let's take this guy out. Let's make a show in the American debut. That was the mistake Anthony Joshua made. He dropped Andy Ruiz and rushed in too quickly, so it was an accumulation of things. It wasn't necessarily just because Ruiz is, say, better than Anthony Joshua, it was because he was a better fighter than anyone was giving him credit for. Not just that, AJ was in there with a kind of fighter who needs to fight a certain way. He gifted him that opportunity, along with the fact that Anthony Joshua was supposed to be fighting Jarrell Miller, but Ruiz was brought in late as a replacement. So there was an accumulation of things. The stars aligned definitely for Ruiz. But you can look at him and think that he cannot cause Anthony Joshua any trouble or anyone like him because look at the shape of him compared to AJ. But I believe that also played into his hands on that night. And it was a brilliant night. First Mexican world champion for Ruiz, obviously it was a brilliant night. Not so much for AJ and his fans, but I think that it wasn't such a bad experience for AJ going forwards. Now he probably considers it a little bit more of a positive experience compared to then, because it taught him a lot that you cannot underestimate anyone, and specifically Andy Ruiz. One interesting thing is, when Joshua was starting out in the pro game, there was a list of heavyweights who were coming through at the same sort of time, all list of heavyweights that he could be fighting, and I think that one of his family members, maybe his uncle, said, okay, these are the names you will be looking at, and next to Ruiz, he wrote Upset King. So even back then, Ruiz was considered to be someone who's completely inconspicuous, who's different from what he looks like. He can bring more to the table, and that was shown on June 1st, 2019. It is always interesting to hear the take of someone like Cristiano Ronaldo. Yes, he's not a boxer, he is a footballer, but he is a peak athlete who's managed to stay at the top for, 15 years? Probably more than that. He moved to Manchester United when he was 17 or 18. So if you look at how he's managed to prolong his career, yes, it's in football, not boxing, but still, you can see that if you look after yourself in between games, if you look after yourself in between seasons and competitions, that is how you manage to stay at the top. That is what Ronaldo has done. That is what Anthony Joshua is doing. So even though he was talking about Andy Ruiz, who is constantly linked to Anthony Joshua due to the 2 fights that they had, but still, considering that, Anthony Joshua is very similar to Cristiano Ronaldo in that kind of respect because he always looks after himself, even in between camps. I mean, he's sparring right now and training. Look at his social media, you will see it. So he is constantly training and staying ready for his next opponent. He doesn't know who he's going to be fighting next. Hopefully it's Tyson Fury, but if not, it's Alexander Usyk. So there is a big fight on the horizon, no matter who Anthony Joshua faces next. Whether it's Usyk, whether it's Tyson Fury, it will be either one of those two. So no matter what happens, it's a big fight next, and AJ recognises that. So staying in shape, staying ready and prepared in between camps is very important, especially considering he's now 31 years old. So what he does now and what he has done throughout the past 10 years of his career will impact him when he starts to get towards 35 and towards 40. So considering that, not to be patronising to Andy Ruiz, but he should take a leaf out of Cristiano Ronaldo's book and say Anthony Joshua, although they are rivals, and yes, they have been in the ring twice, but there is that mutual respect between the two of them. Considering that, I think that he can take leaves out of their books because Cristiano Ronaldo is a supremely confident and supremely successful footballer at the highest level. So is Anthony Joshua. So if he can take something from that, so between camps, maintain the training, which he is doing now, but that's not something you can do just once. You have to do it continuously. Ruiz probably hasn't done that in between camps for training, so that is something he can do going forwards. Now, when Andy Ruiz Jr. got the Anthony Joshua fight, he'd just fought Dimitrenko, so he was going straight back into camp to fight AJ. Now, that may seem like a bad thing because he's just had a fight, he wants to rest and repair, then he can go again. No, I don't believe it was. I think that, again, going back to the stars aligning for Andy Ruiz on that night, had he gone maybe off, maybe had a few weeks and had a break, he would have gone away from training, taken his mind away, whereas he got the Anthony Joshua fight, he knew it was there. So he was mentally motivated for that, to train, to get ready, whereas if he had time in between, maybe he would have had to take some weight off because he just had a training camp from the Dimitrenko fight. Then going into the Anthony Joshua fight, he had another training camp, so that kept the momentum for Ruiz, which was imperative because maybe he hasn't done that in the past. And that momentum from the Dimitrenko camp then going in straight to training again for Anthony Joshua, someone who he's probably been thinking about for a while because that's the world champion holding 3 or 4 governing bodies if you want to count the IBO as the 4th world title. So he's looking at Anthony Joshua, preparing for him. Although he's fighting these other challengers, that is the ultimate goal. So he's already ready and mentally prepared for a big fight in a world championship contest with Anthony Joshua. So he just needed the fight. He got that opportunity. He was already in shape, brilliant shape, from training from Dimitrenko. Yes, he didn't look the best, but he was physically and mentally ready to go 12 rounds if he had to, in there with Anthony Joshua, which was the best thing for Ruiz. Now he just needs to set that into motion going forwards. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo said he's cutting out all snacks and all bad things out of his diet to maintain his career, but he doesn't want to get to the point where people say he's slow, he's off the pace, he's no longer the same guy he once was. He doesn't want that to happen. When it does, that is his time to get out. So he does want to play at the highest level for as long as he can. Changing certain things, making sacrifices, is the only way to do that. It is no different for boxers, and that is something that Ruiz is currently working on. But having said that, that is something that Anthony Joshua has continuously practiced since turning pro when he was 23 years old. So guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.